All right. Hello, everybody. Hopefully, this all comes through nicely. Because I don't know. I'm doing the exact same thing I normally do on my Saturday stream, but for whatever reason, I still feel like I'm just throwing something together real quick. So hopefully, everything comes through okay. There we go. Okay, I hear myself. I see myself. All right. We are live. So hopefully there's no audio issues like Saturday. I just double checked my settings as far as my microphone and my screen share. Hello, hello. I see PandaCat is in the chat here with Stonks. Stonks, Stonks, Stonks. We are ready to go. All right. So I'm doing the stream time I normally don't do it, and I haven't I only really posted it on Tumblr. I hadn't cross posted on all my platforms just because I didn't have time and I was exhausted after work. Um, so I'll have to go back and kind of reshare it later. But basically, we've had all this craziness with this whole GameStop thing and Reddit, Wall Street bets, whatever. Um, and so it's just like, okay, here let's kind of break down what's going on. Let's kind of start from the beginning and say, okay, what's happening here? Where's this going? What's happening next? Do we know, like, you know, what is this thing? For anybody who's watching who doesn't already know what's happening, or who's going to watch later who doesn't already know what's happening, essentially, this is, people on the internet, just kind of a decentralized group. There's no leader here. This is not an organization. Um, just saying, you know what? We are tired of big hedge funds, right? Wall Street hedge funds manipulating the stock market. And this is really key because this begins with the idea that those big hedge funds are already manipulating the stock market, and not just, oh, we're buying here, we're gambling, we're taking risks here and there, but they're literally like betting on companies to lose and then using their connections in media to make sure they lose. And so that bothered people. And and it's kind of like, well, why GameStop? Why are we specifically looking at GameStop? Are they the only one place that's happening? No. Like, I mean, this is happening all over the place. But I think the whole concept of, GameStop as the stock for this was, I think it's a combination of who these people are on Reddit who are doing this whole thing on Wall Street bets. It's millennials. It's my generation. I'm on the youngest end of millennials. They're kind of, you know, I'm kind of on the young end, but it's more older millennials who grew up with, kind of, I think there's a couple of factors here. I think on the one hand, people who um, kind of started this or kicked this off grew up with, like I did, with Blockbuster being, a big part of their childhood, right, and even young adult life. And and the idea of you go to Blockbuster to rent your movies and stuff like that. And we watched Blockbuster kind of go downhill and eventually kind of disappear. I mean, technically, Blockbuster still exists. There are Blockbuster stores that are still operational. It does still exist, but we watched it basically disappear from the market because the model kind of became outdated and all with streaming and all of that sort of thing. And GameStop was kind of about to head the same direction because, and it's not there yet, but we were starting to see the potential demise of GameStop. And and Ashley just popped in the chat. I have 15 shares I'm holding. Got this on a strange whim, but it got serious really fast. Exactly. I think that's where most people are. So that's the thing, is I think this started out as this idea of GameStop, being, there's this nostalgic uh, aspect to it where people are kind of like, well, we like GameStop. It was a part of our culture, part of our childhood, this idea of going to GameStop. It was a lot of people who are in this Wall Street bets thing are like very, they're gamers, right? They like video games. Um, and it would have, kind of would have made people sad to see GameStop go just the way it was sad to see Blockbuster go. And there were all these articles that were coming out being like, oh, GameStop's on its way out and all this stuff. And it was just all this negative press about GameStop. And that's where people realized where this press wasn't based on any kind of real changes in the market or anything. It was really just press that was created in order to make GameStop go down for these short sellers who were betting against it. And so that made people upset because it's like, no, no, no. GameStop still has a chance, depending on what they do, kind of what moves they make as a business. They could still come back, and they're not actually all that, far gone because they still get decent revenue boosts every time a new console comes out. And so that was part of it, saying, hey, we think that the revenue is going to go up, when a new console comes out, so it's worth something that's worth buying and holding and maybe, selling back and forth a little bit. But when people realized just how much effort was being put into uh, pushing down GameStop in order to benefit these hedge fund short sellers, it gave people this kind of, it went beyond just like fundamentals and like, oh, is this undervalued or overvalued? And it went beyond that because it became this thing about like, well, wait a second, who are you, Mr. Hedge fund manager, to not only, bet against this company, but use your media contacts to rig the game so that you make money and we all lose out, right? Convince us all to panic sell and, all that sort of thing. And so for anybody who doesn't know, and I know, and welcome everybody who's joining in, seeing more people hopping in right now. That's awesome. Welcome, welcome. Um, for anybody who isn't aware of exactly what's happening and why GameStop has gone so high up, or what short selling is. So the really simplest way to explain short selling is I believe that the stock is going to go down. So I borrow a share from you and I sell it. But I'm supposed to give you that share back later. So I borrow the share from you and I sell it at $10. I think it's going to go down to $4. And the idea is that if it goes down to $4, okay, I buy it again at 4. I make a $6 profit, and I give you your share back. Well, the problem comes when I've borrowed and sold all of these shares that I never actually had in my hands. Nobody ever actually gave me a share. Like it was all these like theoretical shares that I borrowed and sold, and then I'm supposed to pay back. And so part of the problem for these hedge funds right now is that they've borrowed and sold more shares than the than exist or than are available to buy. Like there aren't that many shares in the float, which is essentially the shares that are available for somebody to just buy on, instantly or whatever. Oh, and a couple comments coming in. So Ashley says that getting into GameStop for me is a combination of the fun of the meme, the potential short squeeze, and being bored out of my mind. And that's where most people are. That's exactly the point. Is it was like people realized the potential. And since she says I knew about WSB but never gave any of their hype stocks any serious thought. And that was the thing. They're like Wall Street Bets has kind of hyped up different stocks and they've gone up a little bit and people have made some quick bucks. But I think that's really plays into why this was so successful. Because not only was it, okay, so you take something that's got some kind of nostalgic, emotional, um, you know, uh, significance to a lot of people. You make it a meme, right? And then there's this thing about the short sell. So when they realize that, oh, wait a second, if these hedge funds had to buy and satisfy all their short sells right now, they wouldn't be able to. There aren't literally enough stocks available for them, enough shares available for them to buy. Which means, in law of supply and demand, that means that the price is going to go up because I want to be careful when I say the demand increases. It's not so much the demand increases, the demand becomes more inelastic. So if you know about elasticity of demand, essentially it's how steep the curve is. And so the demand curve is like this, where, that essentially that it's the more it costs, the less you want to buy, but the curve kind of like flattens, like it kind of flattens out when it becomes inelastic because you get, and inelastic demand is essentially for things that you don't have a choice about buying. So food tends to be very inelastic. So you have to buy food regardless of how much it costs. Now you can kind of buy cheaper food or, whatever. You can do some stuff within that, but you have to buy food. You have to pay rent, even if it's expensive, so those things are inelastic. You can't really just say, oh, I'm not going to buy that because it's too much. So essentially, we're making these shares inelastic for these companies because their short sells are expiring. And so they have to buy. They have to buy regardless of what the price is. And there aren't enough shares for them to buy. And so that's where the squeeze comes in. And people talk about the short squeeze or the gamma squeeze. There's all these squeezes. I'm going to talk about that because the squeeze has not happened yet, right? There's all this talk about squeeze. It hasn't happened yet because the shares or the short sells expire tomorrow at market close. So tomorrow afternoon is when those short sells, whatever, expire. And that's when those expire, those companies have to begin buying back the stock or buying the shares that they owe. And so this is where things get really interesting because depending on how high the price is and how actually not even depending on how high the price is. The price sure matters, but depending on how many shares, how much the float is, essentially how many shares are out there available to be bought. Because when you sell, it kind of goes into this float, right? There's all these shares that are out there that people can buy. And right now there's not enough of them out there to satisfy all the contracts that are about to expire tomorrow. So that means that those hedge funds are desperate. They are desperate to buy. But they don't want you to know that. So they keep doing these things where they keep like doing these little buy and sell offs, these little sell offs here and there, and they do this little manipulative stuff to try and convince you that you need to sell now, that we've already passed the peak and it's on its way down, the bubble has burst. Because it was never supposed to be this high to begin with. And it's like, I know, poor rich dudes, right? Like, oh, I feel so sorry for you. Forbes, I just saw an article like half an hour ago, that literally trying to say, don't believe the populist hype. Hedge funds short sellers are heroes. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, it just the how tone deaf they can be when they're like crying about this, and it's like, no, you don't understand. We're doing this on purpose. And that's the other thing is it's like this is not about people making a bunch of money, which some people have made huge returns on this because some people who bought GameStop back when it was like $4 are now like, whoa, like if they put a significant amount into GameStop like a year ago, they're seeing huge returns right now. But that's really not the point. And there's a lot of people who've made huge returns. And there's this one guy, he's kind of like the hero of this whole thing. It's Deep Effing Value is his Reddit username. And he went in on this in 2019 and told people like go in and buy GameStop. And he went through all these things about like, oh, well, it's undervalued because they get revenue when the consoles come out and blah blah blah. And it didn't have anything to do with the short sales really. But he's like, buy this. This is a good stock. And he kind of encouraged people to buy it. And then and he ended up putting in, I think at one point put in about 50,000, and he's at like 20 plus million or something crazy like that right now. And he's not selling, even though it means he could lose it all because you have no idea. Because at this point, there's a lot of people who are willing to risk significant amounts of money just to mess with these hedge fund people, even if they end up losing it all. It's worth it. And there's some people who are putting like, $600. They're putting their stimulus check down, right? There's other people who are putting like their entire savings account on this. But they're saying, you know what? If this helps bring down these manipulative hedge fund people, it's worth it. And so Ashley says there's a theory on the board that they shut things down today because the brokerages were about to run out of shares. I did see that. Yeah, I think, and I believe that, because I think that's where we're at, is I think we're about to run out of shares. And that was why they had to shut everything down. Because you also had Webull was like, Webull was shut down temporarily, just like for a few hours, and then they tried to explain it away and saying that there was something about like the cost of the platform. I don't remember exactly what they said it was, but it didn't really quite sound right. But it made it sound like there was some kind of pressure on them where they caved to some kind of pressure. Robinhood obviously caved more, and we're all unhappy with Robinhood, but Robinhood is opening up buys tomorrow morning. So I am, as much as I'm gonna be done with Robinhood after this whole thing is over, I am gonna move my stuff to probably to Webull or something else. But I'm at least for right now, because there's not really time for me to move all my my portfolio to something else right now. I am going to put in a little bit more and probably just another $100, honestly, because I'm already kind of in as much as I can be. But I might just put another just to kind of get that little extra in the morning. So we'll see if about that. Ashley also saying, is people posting strange market orders, fractional shares, selling on thousands of dollars per share. Honestly, you know, I think there are some people who are on the hedge fund side who are getting prepared for what comes next. So, and PandaCat says, ironic naming of Robinhood, and that's been those memes have been all over the place today. That literally Robinhood was supposed to be about the common people. Now, taking back. Now, to be fair, the Legend of Robinhood really was more actually about taking back um, taxes from the government that overtaxed its citizens. But really, at this point, these hedge funds and these corporations are kind of one and the same with the government. It's really not a whole lot of difference. It's really like Robinhood went and like took, you know, essentially the poor were being overtaxed, and he's essentially taking from the government, the prince or whatever, and then redistributing it. But it wasn't just like some random wealthy guy. It was like they was taking like from the taxes and things like that. It does tie into this, because you have these corporations, these hedge funds that essentially write the rules. And this is the thing, we talk about regulating Wall Street. I actually don't want more Wall Street regulation right now, because the people who write the regulations are these companies, these hedge funds. They write the regulations when we regulate. And so they write loopholes for themselves. Like, their lobbyists are the ones who write this stuff. Ashley says, don't want to wait weeks for a transfer, so I'm going to take a risk in selling on Robinhood, close account, and not look back. Yeah, so, yeah, I'm leaving my stuff in Robinhood for right now, because of the transfer. Yeah, $75 asset transfer fee. If your portfolio is over 2,500, Webull will pay your transfer fee for you. It will be a free transfer if it's over 2,500. But I know for my regular Robinhood portfolio is smaller, other stuff and other other platforms, but because Vanguard, and again, this might be one of those where you wouldn't have time to have an account set up and funded and stuff and time to take advantage of this. But in general, Vanguard is really great for investments, especially long-term investments. Um, if you're thinking about like retirement investing and stuff like that, Vanguard is really great. Their fees are almost nothing. It's so minuscule, and like they're awesome, and they have lots of options for things like IRAs and whatever. Mannequin says, rules for thee and not for me, but yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly where we're at. And this is the thing. So it's all based off of manipulation. It's all based off of the idea that the market was being manipulated by these hedge fund managers in order to make their profit. And so they're trying to make their profit. They're trying to manipulate not just the market itself, but public perception in order to drive down the value of an actual company that has employees and products and customers and things. Like, this isn't just some kind of theoretical, moving money around, whatever. This is like the actual economy in that sense. And then we come in, these Wall Street Bets people and just these everyday investors come in, and we're like, we're going to buy all these shares, and we're going to put some pressure on these hedge fund people who keep messing around. And then we're the ones manipulating the market? What? And but yeah, and so yeah, and Ashley points out, yeah, it's IRA with Vanguard, but for stocks having fractional shares. And yeah, and that's what I do like about Robinhood and other platforms like it, is being able to do fractional shares. So that has been a huge bonus for that. But we'll see what happens, you know. Yeah, exactly. Ashley says, I will probably go back to my responsible indexing after this, though. I've got beginner's luck at the casino and no trust my luck to put it off again. I think a lot of people are feeling that way. However, and I'm definitely feeling that way. My husband got really into this and he's like, yeah, I can't ever do this again. Like, this is too much stress. Like, he's like not sleeping because he's just so like watching the market, or he's like, I mean, he's asleep right now, but like he's like sleeping weird times, like he's not doesn't have a good sleep schedule and all this stuff. But yeah, and PandaCat makes a good point. If the stock market is the economy, then it's our economy. We're the ones who suffer if it crashes. We should do what we want. Exactly. And it's the thing is, it's our money that we're investing in this. So it's our risk to take. And that's what they were, you know, they're trying to be like, oh, we're going to protect the little investors who don't know what they're doing. It's like, no, we know what we're doing. We're taking risks on purpose. Ash says, yes, screw the hedge funds. They've done so much worse. Yeah, exactly. They have done so much worse as far as manipulating and flat out breaking the law. And that's the thing, is we're working within the law. Nothing Wall Street Bets is doing is illegal. Nothing that these individual investors are doing is illegal. We're literally just buying stock. And then Robinhood and all these other trading platforms say, no, you can't buy that stock anymore. Why? Why? Yeah, we just weren't born with rich daddies. Exactly. And well, and even some that were, like, you know, you have some wealthy people like Elon Musk, and I mean, I'm not saying, you know, his parents were rich, whatever, but you know, he's wealthy. And there's this other guy, I cannot pronounce his name, but I think you know what I'm talking about. Um, and they you know, some of these wealthy people are actually getting on board because they do see, you know, you can be wealthy and also recognize the manipulation of Wall Street. Like, there's a difference between just being wealthy and being one of these hedge fund managers that purposefully manipulate people, right? So it's like some of these, we've got some wealthy investors who are coming in and on our side because they're saying, wait a second, we don't like what the market is doing to the little guy. And like for Elon Musk, I know part of it was that the same firm, Melvin Capital, that was shorting GameStop also shorted Tesla, and he did not like that. So he's kind of getting some revenge, which I think is great. Like, go for it. Um, but so all of that to say that, like, kind of what's coming next, you know, and nobody knows because this is all uncharted territory. Nobody exactly knows what's going to happen with this, and nobody can predict or guarantee anything. So I will say that if anybody's like thinking about getting in at this point, just be careful. Obviously, you know, you can choose your own risks and all of that. Just know that nobody knows. Nobody knows what's going to happen. Not the media doesn't know. CNBC does not know. Market Watch does not know. I don't know. Wall Street Bets doesn't know. None of us know what's going to happen. Ashley says, I asked my boomer dad, who watches MSM all day, what he knew about the GameStop thing, and the first word that came out of his mouth was hack. And it says they're doing their best to make us sound like criminals for buying stock. Right? They're making it sound like we're hacking or we're breaking some kind of rules. We're literally just buying stock. We're saying we want to buy the stock. And that's been kind of a meme on Wall Street Bets, is the I like the stock. It's the idea of like, well, why are you buying this? What, you know, I like the stock. And that's the simplest answer. You know, I like the stock. I like GameStop. I want to buy into it. I believe in the company. You know, and it, you know, that's the thing. Like, nobody's hacking anything. Nobody's doing anything illegal. We're literally just buying stock. We're trying to, you know, and holding it and saying we don't want to sell. You can't make us sell. Robinhood tries to scare you into selling, and all these other platforms try to scare you into selling by saying you can only sell. You cannot buy for your safety. You know, it's your risk. You know, we're trying to protect your risk or whatever. It's ridiculous. And so, um, but what comes next? So the first thing is tomorrow is that day where the shorts expire at market close. So they're going to do everything they can tomorrow to get people to sell. What that may mean is we may see a huge spike. I definitely think we're going to see a spike overnight tonight. Like, we've been seeing spikes in the price in the early morning hours, like the 3 a.m. kind of hours. because we have international people who are hopping on board. I know there was a huge push in India. There was a bunch of retail level investors like you and me, people who are just on like trading apps and stuff. Huge number of people in India who hopped on board. I'm seeing on Wall Street Bets, I'm seeing people talk about, people from Canada, people from parts of Europe who are saying they're going to hop on board. So I wouldn't be surprised if we do see some spikes. And obviously, Canadians are on the same kind of time zones as us. But as far as like European investors, Asian investors, like they're like those are going to start up kind of in those morning hours before our market open. And so we're going to see a spike there. But I also do think we're going to see a spike tomorrow during trading hours. We're going to see a huge spike and then a decline. So what it's going to try and do, they're going to try and trigger some people who've set sell limits. Like if it hits this price, then sell. They're going to try and trigger some of those in order to get stocks dumped. So do pay attention to that. If you set sell limits, make sure that's really where you want to sell, because I think this is going to go higher than people think. So I'm actually don't have a sell limit in place right now. I'm watching it. And I'm not putting one in place until I feel like I have a sense of how high this is going. I tried to put in a ridiculously high sell limit, and Robinhood wouldn't let me. So I tried to put it as 13,370, so essentially elite with a zero, just as a meme, and they wouldn't let me because it was too high, which is also silly. Again, let me put the limit I want to put, right? If it never sells, if it expires, whatever. That shouldn't be a thing. Yeah. 7,000 is probably a good limit to set. Yeah, milk the profits. Exactly. But that's the thing is, I think 7,000 would be a good one. I think if it goes that high, I think that's more than we can hope for. Milk them as high as you can. Oh, yes, that's what you're trying to say. Okay. Exactly. We want them to go as high as we can, because here's the thing. It's not going to hit the peak tomorrow. Tomorrow is not going to be the day if people hold. Now, if everybody sells tomorrow because they think that that's the peak, then this might be over. But if people hold tomorrow and don't sell and even buy, like if there's a dip kind of thing, there's going to be a dip. I think it's going to start out high at market open. I think it's going to dip, going to go down, and then I think it's going to go way up high and then dip again. That's what I think is going to happen, because they're trying to get people scared enough to sell. And feel like, okay, this is the peak. This is it. It's Friday. That was the peak. I'm going to sell right there. And try, because they're trying to get the volume of shares so that they can actually buy the shares that they need to buy. But here's the thing. They don't have to buy all the shares by market close. Market close is when their short sell expires. They still have, I've seen as many as 6 days afterwards. That was at least one thing that I saw, was 6 days after tomorrow to finish buying all those shares. So, yeah, PandaCat, folks have got to not flinch when the dip comes. Exactly. Do not flinch. In fact, if anything, buy the dip. Right? Buy the dip. If it like, I would have bought the dip today. I was so ready to buy the dip, but Robinhood's like, nope, you can't buy the dip. And I tried to go over to Webull, but it takes like 1 to 2 business days to start up an account. And so it was like, not going to happen. And Ashley says, I already sold enough to cover my initial investment, so even if it goes to zero, made a tiny amount. See, perfect. Then you're in an excellent place to just hold, because no matter what, you make a profit. Like, you literally can't lose. Everything is gravy now. Question is how much. Exactly. And honestly, that's where I'm at. Now, I do have, like my husband and I do have some significant stake that I am kind of watching, but worst case, like honestly, I don't think we're really going to lose it, because I think if it really got bad, we could sell and still at least cover what we invested. I don't think it's really going to go that low. Yeah, you could set a stop loss, yeah, and set it low, set it to just where, okay, you would cover whatever. But honestly, I think we'll see it go really high, because we're going to see it continue to go up Monday through Thursday of next week, is what I'm seeing from people who know more than I do. They're saying Monday through Thursday of next week, we're going to see it go way up if people hold, because they're going to be desperate to buy, because they have that kind of grace period, or whatever you want to call it, like that time frame where they're still able to buy shares to satisfy these short sells. So I think we're going to see this go way up next week. Now, I don't know. Again, I don't know. Like, no, this has never happened before on this scale. So nobody really knows what's going to happen. And they're going to try everything to get people to sell. And they might, they might shut down buying again. Robinhood said they're going to open up buying of GME tomorrow morning, but they could just shut it down again. They said they were going to limit buying. They were going to, whatever. But honestly, I think it's going to go up. I think they're not going to be able to stop all of us. And that's the thing. I think that's the theme of like the last year or two, is that they can't stop all of us. It was kind of a joke with the Area 51 raid, and then it became kind of a serious and like a whoa, I don't know if that's where we wanted to go with that thing with the Capitol riots. And then now it's kind of like we found our outlet where we're completely legal. We're not breaking any rules, but they can't stop all of us, Isn't the red on Monday the first day? Yeah, absolutely. Ashley, yeah, like it goes, like I think a lot of people bought in and then it went down and we're like, oh my gosh, what did I do? What did I just do? But yeah, it's gonna go up. It's gonna go up. Because Area 51, yes, Area 51. I think it's that same thing because it's the same group of people. You think about like who went to Area 51, like who actually showed up and who all made the memes. It's the same group of people who are doing this kind of stuff, right? Yeah, and that's the thing, is I think we've kind of desensitized ourselves to these dips because we know that it goes back up, right? And that's the thing, is like, so over the last like week, my poor husband has been so like fixated on this, where he's like trying to watch the stock price while he's working, and then he gets off work and he like goes and takes a nap because the market's closed, and then he's like up, like half the night watching it. And so then I wake up in the morning and he's up and he's like, it went up to this, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I just woke up. And so it's been a little crazy. It's been kind of like, my husband and I and my parents, like, we're all on a text group message thing, and like literally it's just all we're talking about for like the last week has been GameStop and what it's doing and what Robinhood's doing and what the SEC is going to do and all this kind of stuff. It's just been like, what are we doing here? So it's like, it's a little bit crazy. But yeah, yeah, I know. And this is the thing, is my husband was like, I can never do this again. And he acknowledged that, because every once in a while he'd be like, hey, maybe I should get into day trading. He's like, no, I can never do this again. But I will be interested to see if going into the next, like after this is over, if we don't see more things like this, maybe not on the scale, but more things like this, I think it could happen. Because I think you got a lot of interest, and Wall Street Bets got a whole lot more subscribers on Reddit. I think there's a lot of people who are watching it really closely, and whatever kind of the next thing is, especially with these shorts, if it's got this kind of same setup of, it's an undervalued company, they've got all these shorts on it, all this stuff. Yeah, some things aren't worth the mental health toll. Exactly. But I think there's enough people out there who are just crazy enough to just keep going. I wanted to show you guys actually a couple of things. Now, obviously, and hopefully, I think I fixed any audio issues with this, with sharing my screen. But I wanted to kind of, so obviously we know Wall Street Bets, r/Wall Street Bets, right? And if you're not already subscribed to this on Reddit, it is worth kind of checking into, just because they're going to talk about whatever the next thing is. Now, obviously, be aware of language, and not just like as far as swearing or whatever, but just like the way that they talk is sometimes, can be kind of off-putting to some people. You just kind of get used to, this is the way that they talk, and some of the memes and some of the kind of common vocabulary and jokes that are on here. But they're, oops, I didn't mean to click on that. Burp, burp. Close. There it is. Close. Yeah, we'll see. Anyway, why is this being like that? Anyway, so Wall Street Bets is worth, worth following because it may not look the same. And that's the thing is I don't think we'll have the exact same. Well, I don't think we'll have a replication of the same thing. Yeah, exactly. Sub where everyone's wife has a boyfriend. Yeah, there's a lot of those jokes and stuff like that, which I'm kind of like, yeah, whatever. Um, but I don't think we'll see an exact replication of this, but I think we'll see other similar like mass movements of people. Now, I don't know if this is my internet. Hold on, is my internet bad? Or is like Reddit is well Wall Street Bets literally just having an issue right now? Like are they actually glitching out right now? That would be something else. Let's just close that tab and let's just try to open it again. Well, we'll see. All right. Well, that's oh, there we go. Okay. I was all like, oh, that's Wall Street. Is it just gonna like go down right here right now? No. Okay. So just lots of memes and stuff, which has been fun anyway. But it's also on this thread or on this subreddit, they are posting a lot of really good information about how this is all gonna work and how to like be on top of this and know when to sell or when not to sell. And yeah, we can utilize what we've got to make changes in the future. And this is the thing is even if it doesn't look exactly like this, I think if people do make money off of this and hold that, I think if everybody kind of basically has more capital and more buying power, we could potentially do other things with other, whether it's short sells or whatever else, to essentially have other kind of impacts on the market and be players in the market along with these hedge funds where they don't get to have all the power, they don't get to run everything. But I also wanted to show you this. So I've got all these linked in the description, but this is the squeeze squoze. So this is about the whole idea of the squeeze on the short sells, and when they're trying to buy the shares to cover their shorts. So it has this, some kind of, short interest or whatever, and like, according to different firms, because there's not like a official number, it's kind of estimates by different firms. Yeah, scores. So we have Ortex says 100% of float, which means 100% of shares are needed in order to in order to cover all those short sells. S3 Short Site says it's 123%, which is amazing if that's true, because then it is like they have to buy all the stocks that are in the float plus some. And even with 100% of float, buying 100% of the stocks that are in the float is really difficult because especially if other people are buying who are not covering float or not covering short interest. And so so they're kind of oh yeah, and so they were and I saw this. So apparently if you had margin like there were some accounts where Robinhood was forcing people to sell. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's insane." Where people had like orders scheduled to sell and they couldn't cancel them. Which I think that's there. I know there's at least 2 class action lawsuits. Um, there's at least two class action lawsuits against Robinhood so far, and it and I know that class action lawsuits aren't going to do a whole lot, but like hopefully there's some real investigations into this because they need to be held accountable for this. This is ridiculous. Yeah, and PandaCat, if they have to buy all the stocks, you have to hold the line. That's why it's hold the line. And some of those were cash accounts. Yeah, so this is the thing is it's like, and thankfully it hasn't happened to me. I keep checking mine just to make sure, but they're literally just trying to. They're literally going to force people to sell, which is insane. Um, so if you can switch, and so Vanguard, TD Ameritrade, and Fidelity so far have been good, but it just might be hard to transfer in time. I think as soon as this is kind of over, I think a lot of people will be transferring. Yeah, having it auto sell at the lowest price exactly. It's so bad, so bad. And so there's kind of more. There's on the site. There's more explanation, but really, what's important here says click here to be sent a heads up when the squeeze is probably starting to get squoze. So you click here and you put your email in your phone and you put like a spam email because I don't know who this person is and they're probably gonna sell your info or whatever. Who knows? Maybe not. Maybe this is just some good Samaritan who's gonna let you know what's happening. But put a spam email in. And then put your phone number. You will get a text alert when the squeeze is close. Okay, so if you're like, when do I sell? When do I do this? You'll get a text alert. So I signed up for the little text alert, but this is as of 5 p.m. today. These were the stats here. But I would pay attention to this because I think this is where we kind of all need to be on the same page. Because if we're all holding, we need to know when is it time to sell, because we need to kind of all coordinate in order to make this work for everybody, where everybody ends up making some money. Now, some people have said they're just holding GameStop. PandaCat says they suddenly can't play at their own game without cheating. Exactly. Because as soon as somebody else got good at their game, it reminds me of the, like you go to your friend's house to play video games on their console, and it's their favorite game that they love to play, and they always win. But you actually beat them once, or you're beating them, like you're actually doing really well, and they just rage quit and they like turn off the console. It's like, well, wait a second, that's not fair, right? That's not how that works. But that's what's happening right now. They're rage quitting, but they're like turning off the console for you too. They're not just rage quitting. They're making you quit. But we have to coordinate on this, and I think we have to make sure that we're waiting until they are really being squeezed. And so I would wait until it says the squeeze has been squeezed. Like I'd wait until they say now before you sell anything, because we want to be able to get up the mail null address. Oh, I would pick an email address. So I have like an email address that I use for signing up for things. So I don't care if it gets spam. So that's, I guess, what I mean is like by a spam email address. So I just use an email address that I don't care what gets sent to it or if it gets sold. Yeah, you can also just refresh obsessively. That happens. And so then, but just for fun, in addition to that, if you haven't seen, this is Wall Street Bets Records, and this is songs and covers of songs that have been made about this or about Wall Street Bets in general. This has been around for a while, but especially in the last like week or so, there's been there's raps, there's the Tendy Man, which is it's the Wellerman, but it's about GME. And it's like, and this is the metal or this is the groove remix. Oh, here, yeah, this is the metal version. This is pretty good. It's pretty good. But like, this is just fun. This is just fun if you like, the culture. Like, this is the thing, is like there's a culture around this, and I think that's why I could see this happening again. And like, yeah, exactly. So it's the Wellerman, but about GME. And so this is like the original kind of version, and then this is the metal version, which is really awesome. I love it. So, but I think the fact that they're building culture around this means I think this is here to stay. I think we're going to see this. But this is the unifier, right? This is the great unifier. You have people on the left, people on the right, people in the middle, libertarians, anarchists, socialists, communists. You have everybody on board with this thing. You have Rashida Tlaib, Ted Cruz, like Donald Trump Jr. Like, everybody is on board with this thing. Now, of course, AOC is still being petty about like not wanting to work with Ted Cruz, blah blah blah. But like, for the most part, everybody's on board, and we're setting aside differences and saying we're going to take down these hedge fund people. And regardless of what happens next week, if we squeeze the squoze or whatever, there's lawsuits being filed. There's members of Congress who are talking about hearings and investigations into the hedge funds, into the trading apps, into the platforms. Yeah, we are the people, and we have finally realized that we are the people. That's exactly right. We are the people, right? And we have power, and we have the ability to communicate with each other and to coordinate. And that's where we're at right now, is where we're realizing that we can actually do this, and we can do stuff like this, and they can try to stop us, but they can't really. It's like there's like, yeah, okay, you can shut down trading on Robinhood, but there's like a million other platforms. And are you going to shut down all of them? If there's even one platform that's still allowing me to buy and sell, I'm going to hop over there. Right? So this is where we have to use the free market to the fullest extent. There's going to be a push to try and regulate this. There's already been a push to label Wall Street bets as white supremacist, alt-right, stuff like that, which is insane. But yeah, they cannot totally shut us out. But literally that's what they're going to try and do. They're going to try and shut everyday people out from investing. They're not going to be able to, not without, giving away everything, their hand, I think we're going to, I think they're going to realize they can't stop all of us. They can't. And there's going to be, and the thing is, if they said, oh, well, no, all these retail accounts, like you can't, we're going to control your trading and whatever. If people just like stopped participating in the stock market, there would be, like this is where this could come to some kind of collapse or some kind of restructuring of our economic system, which could be crazy, but it may be necessary. So if something really crazy happens with our economic system, it may be necessary because this whole thing is a house of cards and it is not stable, it is not permanent, and we may be exposing, here's all the vulnerabilities, here's all the flaws. Oh, I forgot to plug in my computer. So my battery is running really low, so we're just gonna y'all are just gonna come with me here. Sorry for the movement. And there we go. Okay, sorry about that. Forgot to plug in my computer. There we go. Okay. So, yeah, and so Ashley says if the government NYSE halts trading, yeah, and that's what I'm worried about is that they just halt. Well, they can't totally halt trading for very long because here's the thing: if they just halt trading, yeah, I know. I'm like, okay, let me carry my computer anyway. If they just halt trading, then the hedge funds can't trade either. But if they only halt it for the retail accounts, if they halt it for us but not for them, that's where we get the lawsuits. That's where we get the congressional investigations. If that happens, we have to really put the pressure to make sure that this is not just okay, they have to pay some fines, but like that people go to jail, right? And that I mean, we need to bankrupt some of these things if they're going to play these games. So yeah, and it is riot season. It's always it's either COVID season or riot season, right? I think we are coming up on another COVID season, but I think we're going to have a riot season first. I honestly think we're going to get COVID season again in March. I think we're going to have a new COVID season in March. In the meantime, we're going to have a riot season, probably more riots over the summer. But yeah, they're going to do Occupy Wall Street 2.0. Young Republicans. It was a college or whatever, young adult Republicans group that says they're going to do Occupy Wall Street. Like, okay, it's cool. Let's do that. Yeah, and so we need to start holding them accountable. And I think there's enough. This is the thing is like what you did is last year, we shut down the economy. We shut down everybody's jobs. All these people either lost their jobs or were working from home. All of a sudden had way more time on their hands. They're sitting around, they're bored. And then it's like, and you can't go anywhere. And so you start reading things and you start learning things. You start paying attention to things. People are so much more politically aware, so much more economically aware. And I don't think you can put that genie back in the bottle. And unless you totally reopen everything and COVID is over and you give up all your control, which the government's not going to do that. So they're trying to control information, but we're decentralizing and we're having decentralized platforms for information sharing and file sharing and things like that. So I don't think you can put this genie back in the bottle. And I think people are aware. People are angry, right? Exactly. People are frustrated. They're angry. They lost their jobs. They lost their livelihood. They were told to stay home. And then we were told to do all this for our protection. And I think that's where people are going to break. Because COVID was all for our protection. It was the lockdowns were for our protection. You can't go into a store without them being like, for your safety. drove me really crazy over right before Christmas. So I'd made this custom, like with my pyrography, my wood burning stuff. I'd made this frame for a family member, and like a picture frame. And I went to go get the picture printed to go put in the frame. And I went to Walmart because it was a whole thing where like they were backed up on online orders. So I was hoping, I was like, I'm just gonna go in and use the little kiosk. And I go into Walmart to use a kiosk, and all the kiosks are closed for my protection. And I'm like, I just want to print a picture, and it's that frustrating moment where it's like, no, stop trying to protect me. Just let me do what I need to do. Let me take my risks. I can touch a screen and I can use hand sanitizer if I'm really worried about it. Like, let me do the things I need to do. And yeah, exactly. I wonder if this amount of shorting on the stock would have been noticed if COVID season didn't have everyone lying around at home. Exactly. And that's how you got the George Floyd riots, because you had everybody sitting around at home, cooped up in their homes for months. And then all of a sudden, there's an excuse to be out on the street. I think there's a lot of people who just went out because they wanted to get out and be around people. And now you have this kind of thing where it's like we're all stuck at home and we're watching. And we're watching the billionaires get so much richer while everybody else is like losing their livelihoods, right? Like you're watching the people profiting off of COVID. And a lot of the people who are profiting off of COVID are people who have some hand in continuating, perpetuating it, as far as like the propaganda and the information about it. And so you have this anger of that, like that this class of this oligarchy of people who, you know, they they have all this control, they have all this wealth, they have all this power, they've made all this money off of off of this pandemic, and and everything. And we're all watching this going, wait a second, why do you get to do all this? Why do you get to live your life and do things your way, you know, and we can't? And so, yeah, closing small businesses while airlines never reduce capacity. Exactly. Exactly. Walmart, like there was a point at the beginning where places like Walmart, they had reduced capacity, but it was very brief. It went away real quick. And there's still restaurants and small stores and stuff who have to reduce capacity. Um, and yeah, and they're laughing about it. It's funny to them. And they're going on vacations, they're getting haircuts, exactly. Austin, I live in Austin, Texas, and our mayor went to Cabo. He went to Cabo and he filmed a video from Cabo telling us to stay home for Christmas or for Thanksgiving or whatever it was, whatever holiday it was. From Cabo, okay. And so that's where people are done. Regardless of what you think about COVID, whether you think it's like, overblown or not, whatever, regardless of what political party you are, I think we all realized that there's something wrong here, that the game is rigged. Yeah. And we like they do. They mock us. They mock us every time that they go out and do things. Like New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio and his wife slow dancing in Times Square while nobody else can be there. Like Times Square is shut down. Nobody can go there for New Year's Eve. De Blasio and his wife slow dancing in the middle of Times Square. They have the whole thing to themselves. And it's like, are you kidding me? And Ashley, you're from Houston. That's awesome. So yeah, so I'm in Austin. I know I got some people through Tumblr and stuff who are in like Waco and stuff, so it's great. Um, Austin is a little California flavored. It wasn't this bad when I moved here. And as it is, I would eventually like to get at least out of the city into the suburbs. The suburbs aren't bad. It's just the city itself, which is awful. But PandaCat says, my friend at work had a panic attack and wasn't allowed to take her mask off to breathe. Oh, that's awful. That's awful. I know. I used to have a workaround at my job where I had a plastic shower curtain, and they initially said that was okay instead of a mask as long as I was behind the curtain. Now they say that's not okay anymore, so I have to wear a mask all day now. And I do get panic attacks. I get like kind of anxiety with it, but I also have my vasovagal syncope. So just having the mask on for prolonged periods makes me dizzy and I can pass out. So I have to sit all day so that I don't pass out. And so I've got a doctor's appointment coming up where hopefully my doctor is going to write me a note and say that I don't need to wear a mask or whatever. So I'm hoping for that. But it's, yeah, it's awful the way that they're treating this stuff. Um, oh, what did my, I, I don't know what you're saying what to. How is that not enough? Oh, my shower curtain? Yeah, my shower curtain is apparently not enough because the COVID can go around the shower curtain. Yeah, exactly. It's not about safety. And it's about appearances. That's what's so funny. So I have this really thin cotton gauze mask. It doesn't stop anything. There's no way that stops anything. Like you can see the holes, right? So, um, but I wear that, and when I wear it, you can't tell how thin it is when it's on my face, and they allow it, but they won't allow the gaiters that you pull up. You know, they're around your neck and you pull up because they're too thin. Because it's all appearances. They don't check my mask to see if it's too thin. It's all just appearances. It's not actual based in reality about safety or anything. It's just these assumptions and these appearances, and it's like it's theater. It's security theater, right? And not to make this too much about COVID, because I know this is like supposed to be the stonks stream, but I think it all connects. It's all this idea of we're doing this, we're ruining your life, we're locking you down, we're destroying your business, and now we're shutting down your ability to buy and sell stocks for your protection, because we're looking out for your best interest. We're protecting you from risk, right? And that's the problem. And I think people are realizing we don't want a nanny state. We don't want the government to decide our risks for us. We don't want the wealthy elites to decide our risks for us, what risks we are and are not willing to take. Because you watch it, like with COVID, they would make it sound like, you couldn't take any risk and any risk was too much. And now the vaccine, they're like, oh, well, yeah, there's some risk with the vaccine. There's some risk in everything. And I'm like, well, wait a second. That's what I said at the beginning about COVID. Like, there's some risk in everything you do. So why can't I just take my own risk? And the same thing goes here with trading with GameStop with stocks is I I can make my own decisions. I can take my own risk. I'm an adult. The government is not my parent. you know, my parents are not, this, my parents are not controlling people at all. But I'm just saying, like, you would think like your parents could have a say, right? Like I could understand my parents saying, "Hey, don't take that risk. That's too risky," and trying to caution me and warn me against taking a big risk. But the government's not even my parent. Like even my parents wouldn't like stop me from doing something just because it's risky. They would let me take a risk. They might warn me, but they're not going to stop me. And the government's like, "No, we're going to stop you. We're going to like physically stop you from taking that risk, even if it means taking another risk that's potentially worse." So yeah, I'm really hoping that we see out of this, we see some unity and some people realizing who the true enemy is, that it's not each other. It's not this left versus right thing. It's us versus the oligarchy, which is the government plus the elites plus whatever. Brokerages make you check off a disclaimer when you sign up. Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. When you sign up to sell stocks, they say invest at your own risk. You assume the risk. Never invest what you can't afford to lose. Blah 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 blah. They always do that, and yet now they're protecting us. They're protecting us. Oh, you know. But really, they're protecting the hedge funds. And they say we're protecting our customers. It's because the hedge fund is their customer, not us. They don't care about us. They care about the hedge fund. The hedge fund's the one that invested more than they could afford to lose. They risked. They could not afford to lose. They broke the cardinal rule. PandaCat says, I followed an Antifa account because I like their opinion on GameStop stuff. But that's exactly the point is, and I've regularly follow a lot of people who I disagree with on significant issues because I agree with them on some other thing. And I think this is the point where we realize that we can have common ground, even if we disagree on politics on certain areas, that we can unite against a common enemy, which is this kind of oligarchy elite thing, combination of government and corporation and whatever else, these people who are trying to control us. World Economic Forum, like people like that. And if we realize that they are the enemy and that they're the ones we should be resisting, not each other, I think we can make some huge changes in our society. I think that's a path forward. So yeah, and it's you know all the narrative is like, oh, these poor investors that don't know any better. It's like, no, we know exactly what we're doing. And as soon as we all realize that we know and we can make our own decisions, and it goes for COVID, it goes for every government regulation ever. That, like, for instance, I should be able to decide if I want to go into that bar and order a drink. I shouldn't need them to have a license from the government, right? Like, they shouldn't have to have a license from the government in order to operate. I should be able to decide, do I trust this business? I should be able to make that decision myself, right? And because they've leveraged that over businesses over this whole COVID thing, it's like, oh, we'll take away your license. And I think we need to reach a point where we say, so what? You're actually going to stop me? You're actually going to arrest me? You're actually going to do all this stuff? Like, let me take my risks. Let me make my choices. Yeah. And we're learning so much because, yeah, you can learn so much from YouTube, from the internet. We're learning so much and we have access to so much information. And we're finally learning how to leverage it for our own benefit and how to work in concert, how to coordinate with people and say, we can do this together. We are stronger. It's the apes together strong, It's that whole thing. But it's true. Like, we are stronger together. We can work together. We can set aside differences. We can cooperate and we do better. We do that. Imagine that. And it's a voluntary cooperation. It's not collectivism. It's not you have to be part of this group or you're an outsider. It's voluntary cooperation. And this is a huge key example of it because there's nothing forced or coerced about this. This is all people who voluntarily, waltzed on the Wall Street bets on Reddit, read some posts, and then made a decision on their own to invest because they read some posts. That's the ultimate, like, decentralized cooperation. Let's see. The song "It Is True" or "Is It True" from Hadestown is known for this. I'll have to look that up. I've never heard that one, so I'll look that up. But yeah, so I mean, I just think we are seeing this kind of revolution, and this may be what the revolution is. We talk about, like, people talk about civil war and revolution, and I was always of the opinion that eventually it would turn into a hot war in the sense of actual physical conflict, and I think we'll still have some of that. We've had it with riots and skirmishes and things just in the last year. But I do think we're going to see a more of a technology war, an information war, and that's what we're seeing right now is people using the tools of the elites to beat them at their own game. And I think that's what we're going to see as far as a revolution um, against the establishment is this sort of thing. And who knows what's next? It may not be stocks, it may be something else, but I think we're going to see more things like this where the people realize with enough of us together cooperating, individual people taking small actions with a big consequence or a big, changes happening. We have to play their game exactly. Uh, PandaCat says we got to play their game. They don't like getting their weak hands dirty. Exactly. But that's the thing is if we can learn their games, if we can beat them at their games, they're not prepared for that. They're used to no competition, to no real challenge. They're not ready for it, and that's where this can be really cool. All right, I'm tired. I had a long day, and I want to thank y'all for joining in on this. And I love the fact that we got to have this kind of cool back and forth discussion here. Just real quick and Ashley says personally salty about being called an insurrectionist for last month for doing absolutely nothing, not even contesting election results. Exactly. That's the thing is, and here's the thing, like, I didn't vote for Trump. I did not vote for Trump. But I said, hey, there is something wrong with this election process. But it's like, oh, you're an insurrectionist, you're spreading fake news, you're blah 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 blah. And I'm like, I literally didn't even vote for him. I just think that there's something wrong here. I think there's something going on. But yeah, and that's the thing. I think there's so many of us who want to just do our own thing and not be bothered and be left alone. But the government has not left us that option. There's so many people who never would have showed up to a protest, who never would have um, gone all in on something like this because they just want to do their own thing and be left alone. But that option was taken away from us. We were told we couldn't just uh, do our own thing anymore. Like the government was going to come and intervene. And so now we're saying, okay, let's get in on this together. PandaCat says we're model citizens. We do what people should. They're the ones who need to be fixed. Yeah, exactly. We're doing our thing. We're making the best choices for ourselves and our families and our livelihoods. And it's the government that's interfering in that. So, um, I think the takeaway I would say is if you're wanting to get in on the GameStop stocks, try to buy tomorrow. Look for a dip tomorrow morning, maybe around lunchtime. Usually there's dips around lunchtime just under normal circumstances, and I've been seeing it the last week that we have seen dips at lunchtime. So watch for that. If you can, try to get in on another platform besides Robinhood. Problem is Webull. If you don't already have a Webull account, it takes like 1 to 2 business days to get one. I signed up for one today. I'm hoping it opens up tomorrow so that I can put some in. Um, but if worst case scenario, use what you can, whatever will let you buy, and then hold to at least sometime next week, and check out that is the squeeze squoze page to see where we're at. But I think this could be something really cool, and even if it fizzles out, even if it doesn't turn out the way everybody's expecting it to, at the very least we really seriously scared them. They're shaking. They're literally shaking. So I think we can see, I think we can look forward to more things like this where we hit them where they live, figuratively. We beat them at their own game, and I think that's how we win this. Is we learn their game, we learn it better than them, and we beat them at it, and we use our decentralized our ability to cooperate, with each other and have a lot of people taking small actions to overtake these big things, these big institutions. Yeah, and it's great talking to everybody. Thank y'all for coming in on the chat. I always appreciate when people come in on the chat. It's more fun this way than me just talking. I will still stream on Saturday. Saturday will probably be some of whatever, kind of talking about whatever happens tomorrow, because I'm sure there'll be some crazy stuff tomorrow, plus maybe something and some other topics. But and maybe I'll do some other kind of random streams like this if something really crazy happens. But thank you guys for joining in. Yeah, check out the links in the description. Of course, I've got the Wall Street Bets Reddit. I've got the WSB Records, which is all the songs, which are fun. Is the Squeeze Squoze, and then I've always got Freedom Cells linked, which is the building freedom communities and building these self-sufficient, self-sustaining communities. So check that out if that's something you're interested in. And then of course all my social media links if you want to follow me different places in case I ever get kicked off of YouTube or Tumblr. And then of course my pyrography, my wood burning commissions, and my Ko-fi coffee whatever support link. So thank you guys. Great talking to y'all, and I will see you on Saturday.